After 5 decades, the Milwaukee Bucks have done it. 50 years of drought. 5 years after winning a championship, everything was gone. The coach, the superstar, the dynasty. So how did one of the NBA's healthiest franchises completely fall apart? This is the downfall of the Milwaukee Bucks. For most of its history, Milwaukee was just there, either at the bottom of the standings or just mediocre at best. Then in 2013, the Bucks drafted an 18-year-old Greek kid nobody outside scouting circles had heard of. Skinny, raw, barely spoke English, Giannis Antetokounmpo. No one batted an eye. Even commentators can't pronounce his name properly. It took years to become anything. He grinded through seasons where the Bucks were irrelevant, slowly turning himself from a project into a problem for everyone else in the league. Year after year, Giannis improved in all aspects until he became a bulldozing machine that the league had no other choice but to acknowledge. By 2019, he was the MVP. By 2020, he was the MVP again. Every Milwaukee fan thought 2019 was the year. They were the first seed. Nobody figured out Giannis yet until they got absolutely smoked by prime Kawhi Leonard and the Toronto Raptors. 2020, bubble year. MVP for Giannis, first seed again, second round exit. 2 MVPs, no championship to show for it. Milwaukee decided to lock in and build a roster around their main guy. In the midst of the 2020-2021 season, they traded for defensive specialist Jrue Holiday, bringing in much more grit in that backcourt with sharpshooter Khris Middleton. And in 2021 playoffs, everything clicked. Jrue was a defensive demon. Khris Middleton was the perfect Robin to Batman. As the three dragged the Milwaukee Bucks to the NBA Finals, and with Giannis dropping a nuclear 50 points in Game 6 to deliver the franchise's first championship in 50 years. For one summer, Milwaukee was the center of the basketball universe. The kid nobody wanted was now the best player on the planet. And he'd done it in the smallest market in the league, on the team that drafted him the hard way. Milwaukee was hungry for more. Why go for 1 if you can go for 2? It felt like the start of a dynasty. Well, it was not the start of a dynasty. It was the peak. This championship would end up creating the biggest problem Milwaukee ever faced. The NBA entering 2022 was in the tail end of the era of dynasties. 3 different champions the last 3 seasons. But for Milwaukee, they are determined to defend their crown, with the experience of lifting the coveted Larry O'Brien trophy and Giannis leading the charge. It's almost certain that they were going back-to-back until it wasn't. Win it all once, and suddenly every single decision after that gets measured against, can this get us back there? And that pressure is exactly what turned the next 5 years into one of the strangest downward spirals in recent NBA memory. The cracks showed up fast. Khris Middleton's knee injury doomed the repeated bid in 2022, ending in a second-round exit to the Celtics in 7 games. Losing your second-best scorer and pushing the stacked Boston Celtics to 7 games was respectable. Disappointing, but forgivable. Injuries happen, not the end of the world. Then came 2023. A fully healthy Milwaukee squad finished first in the East. They were the team to beat. Giannis was unstoppable. Khris Middleton was elite. Sucks that they had to face the greatest 8th seed in the history of the NBA. Jimmy Butler went nuclear. The Bucks, with the best regular season record in the entire league, lost in 5 games to a team that barely made it out of the play-ins. One playoff loss changed everything. For many, this is the moment that started the collapse. That loss didn't just sting. It triggered everything. With that upset came the realization that Milwaukee had an aging roster. One that would become very expensive with key stars and supporting players approaching free agency. The front office panicked into urgency mode. And panicked urgency in the NBA usually means one thing: a big swing. And it was indeed a big swing. Instead of making small adjustments, Milwaukee gambled everything. September 2023. The Bucks pull off the move everyone had been begging for. They trade for Damian Lillard, a future Hall of Famer, one of the most lethal shot creators of his generation. Pairing him with Giannis was supposed to be the answer to everything Miami had just exposed, a team that couldn't create offense when the connective tissue broke down. Everyone instantly knew Milwaukee was again the team to beat. The Bucks also hired Adrian Griffin, a first-time head coach pulled up from Toronto's bench, to handle a roster that now had 2 top 15 players in the league and championship or bust expectations stapled to it. And he won. 30-13, won nearly 70% of his games. The second place in the Eastern Conference, 3.5 games back of the first-place Celtics. He had the blessing of Giannis Antetokounmpo himself going into the job. The Bucks were back in their groove. Vibes were high. And then the Bucks made the most shocking decision of the entire era. 43 games into the season, the Bucks fired him anyway. All told, he got 118 days to coach Dame and Giannis together. Less than 4 months to figure out 2 All-Stars who'd never played a single minute together before that October. There's no real precedent in NBA history for a team firing a first-year coach with the league's second-best record. The only real comparison is Blatt in Cleveland, and even Blatt had taken his team to the finals the year before. So why the hell did they actually do it? Apparently, Griffin's inability to ever gain the full trust of his star players is what actually led general manager John Horst to conclude he wasn't the right man for the job, regardless of what the record said. It started in training camp when Griffin clashed with his own veteran assistant Terry Stotts in front of the entire team. Stotts had been Dame's head coach for over a decade in Portland and was brought in specifically to mentor Griffin and bridge the gap to his new superstar. With all that said, despite the record, he got fired. So who do you call when your 2-superstar experiment is already on fire in year 1? You call the most available championship pedigree coach on the market. Doc Rivers stepped in immediately. A coach with a title on his resume and nearly 1,100 career wins. The hope was stability. What actually happened was a slow bleed that stretched across 2 more seasons. Doc Rivers realized this was never the super team in Boston. Doc never figured out the Giannis-Dame fit either, not really. And the era ended in the cruelest way possible. In Game 4 of the 2025 first-round playoff series against the Indiana Pacers, Lillard tore his Achilles tendon. He just fought back from a blood clot in his calf to even play in that series, making a recovery doctors called superhuman, only to go down 6 minutes into Game 4. The Dame era in Milwaukee was over before anyone officially said so. The Bucks never gave Dame a second chance. 2 months after the injury, the Bucks waived Damian Lillard outright using the stretch provision, paying out the remaining $113 million on his deal over the next 5 years instead of keeping him on the roster. A move that left them carrying over $22 million a year in dead money on their books all the way through 2030. Instead of waiting for him to recover, they decided to give him free money. The entire move was made for one purpose: reassuring Giannis Antetokounmpo, who was reportedly already considering his future, that 2025-26 wouldn't be a wasted season. They used the cap space to sign Miles Turner, a real, legitimate, rim-protecting big man, as a direct replacement for Brook Lopez. John Hurst even flew to Greece to personally pitch Giannis face-to-face on why this new roster could still contend. Spoiler alert, it didn't. The Bucks were straight-up garbage. Doc Rivers didn't know what to do. To be fair, the roster he's been given was doomed to fail anyway. Sources told ESPN that Antetokounmpo and his agent had been telling the Bucks since May of 2025 that he wanted out, that he believed it was best for both sides to part ways. He made it clear, repeatedly, that he would not sign another long-term extension with the team. The Bucks held on anyway. Through the trade deadline, through an entire season, the team finished 32-50, dead last in any meaningful sense, and 11th in the Eastern Conference. The worst Bucks season of the Giannis era by a mile. And even Giannis noticed. He knew that with that $22 million dead salary cap space and no young players to develop around him, Milwaukee was not the place to get that second ring. And Giannis exactly knows where to go. The Miami Heat and Boston Celtics became the two finalists chasing a trade for Giannis, with Boston reportedly offering Jaylen Brown and multiple first-round picks. The Bucks went back and forth. In the end, the youth, the flexibility, and the total draft asset collection from Miami's offer won out. Giannis Antetokounmpo and Bobby Portis are headed to the Miami Heat in exchange for Tyler Herro, Kel'el Ware, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Caparas Yakutsionis, 3 first-round picks, a pick swap, and a second-round pick. After spending his entire career in Milwaukee, the organization who believed the kid from Greece, the time has come to move on. Giannis brought the city back on the map. Milwaukee fans loved him, and rightfully so. He gave the city everything, and it resulted in a championship that felt impossible to capture. It's also the ultimate piece of irony that Lillard landing on the Bucks indirectly led Giannis to wind up in South Florida. Miami's failed pursuit of Lillard back in 2023 was part of the chain of events that eventually triggered Jimmy Butler's exit from that team, which cleared the cap sheet and the motivation for Pat Riley to go all in on this exact move 3 years later. Everything connects. The team that beat the Bucks in 2023 and started this entire collapse is the same team that just walked away with their franchise legend. A botched coaching hire, a superstar trade that ended in a season-ending Achilles tear, a wave and stretch move that will haunt their salary cap until 2030. And finally, the guy who made all of it matter in the first place is getting on a plane to South Beach. The championship was real. Nobody can take that away. But everything the Bucks built around it, brick by increasingly desperate brick, finally just collapsed under its own weight. Bucks fans, you might need to wait another 5 decades.